Hi everyone, welcome on this new episode of Mel's Talk, and today I'm here with Sukhi, who is an award-winning businesswoman and author. Thank you so much for being with me on Mel's Talk.
Thanks so much, Mel. I'm super excited to have a really interesting conversation with you today.
Me too. So we're going to talk a bit more about your journey as a founder and obviously the launch of your book, talk a bit more about your challenges you have faced and how, again, Hatch helped you as well develop a bit more about your business.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So my first question for you, Sukhi, is what made you want to become an entrepreneur? Because I know you were from the corporate world. What kind of made you want to do that switch?
Yeah, so it's such a great question to get started off with. So, like many people, I think I left university and I didn't really have a clue what I wanted to do. But I could see all of my peers and all my friends were going into banking. So I thought, okay, why not? I'll try that out. So I entered the banking industry and I was really excited at the beginning. It was something brand new, very exciting. It was the first time I was working in, the heart of the financial district in the city of London, in the Canary Wharf area. So I was very, very excited. But about 1 or 2 weeks into starting the actual role, I started to feel like this was probably not the best place for me. And it's only in hindsight, I now can see that you need to have certain skills which are aligned to certain jobs. And you have to actually enjoy those skills. And I was doing a lot of work which I found very repetitive, very monotonous. It was very sort of, this is how it's done and you don't make any changes. And what I found was later is I'm someone who really thrives with change, and I love making efficiencies and transforming projects and programs. And so I kind of figured out that probably wasn't the best, environment for me. But it took me over 10 years to actually make the leap. Yeah. So, on the side, I was kind of reading business magazines and I was just so inspired by amazing people like entrepreneurs like Richard Branson.
Exactly.
I remember I'd read all of his autobiographies and I was just mesmerized and so inspired by how you could create something and help a lot of people. So I was basically just doing a lot of work, after work and just exploring how to sort of start my own business. And so to cut a long story short, I was starting and experimenting with a number of different business ideas whilst I was in the day job. But then it took me about 10 years to finally have the courage to leave the day job and then actually strike out on my own and then set up my own business. So that's how my journey started.
Is this an experience kind of you regret, or you have learned lessons along the way of having the corporate job?
Yeah, so Mel, I think no experience is ever wasted. It's always going to be a learning curve. So for me, what I found, again in hindsight, was when I worked in the corporate world, I picked up amazing sort of best practices and I learned basically how large organizations operate, and I learned how to sort of run projects, run systems, and also, working with other people in teams. So I actually think it was a great training background, and I did a lot of project work, and that fits so nicely into the work I'm doing now as a chief operating officer at Market Orders, which is a startup, and I'm using all of those skills in my role as a startup. So I would say there's never a wasted experience if you can learn from it and then integrate it into your life.
So for people who are watching us and maybe they are still in their career, like thriving, but they still have this kind of project idea or passion they want to turn into a business, what would be kind of your advices as well in terms of how did you do it? Because obviously you have a security, you have your paycheck every month.
Yeah.
How do you kind of transition from that to kind of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so, what I will tell you is when you start your business, you're probably not going to get a consistent and sustainable income from the very beginning. So what I did, Mel, was I knew I wanted to leave my day job and start my own business. And I was at the stage where I knew I had to, I was being constricted with time. So I knew I had to sort of let one thing go in order for something else to flourish, which was my business. So in order to do that, I knew I needed to self-fund myself and fund the business as well. So what I did was I set myself a 2-year goal.
Okay.
And for 2 years, I just saved everything I could.
Wow.
And I called that my startup fund and my escape fund. So I call it my escape fund because it would help me escape a day job. And it was also my startup fund to help me get my business up and running. So it wasn't without sacrifices. You know, loads of my colleagues would go for lunches every day.
Exactly.
And I was making my own cups of tea and making my own sandwiches. But I had a vision and I had a goal. And I knew that making these small sacrifices would help me in the long run. So I would say, you know, that your top tip is make sure you have a financial runway to help you, you know, pay your basic necessities whilst you get your business up and running. Because in the world of business, it's quite unpredictable. You might have the best plan, but, you know, life happens and you don't really know how it's going to go. So having that financial cushion just gives you that runaway to sort of build your dreams.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree on the small sacrifices. Sometimes you just say, oh, it's just a cup of tea or just a sandwich, but in the long term, it really counts.
It does, yeah. Small sacrifices. I guess the second thing I'd say is start building your new network and your new community. Yeah. So I was surrounded by sort of, you know, 9 to 5 corporate type of people. And whenever I explained to them my business idea, they were like, are you crazy? And sometimes you just need to be surrounded by people who are in the same boat as you and are encouraging you. And most importantly, they're also doing crazy things like starting up businesses and, you know, they're going to encourage you. So what I did was I went online and I looked up networking events for entrepreneurs and I joined organizations like Google Campus, which was in London, but sadly they've closed now.
Yeah, they closed.
I went to loads of their meetups and I met a lot of people who were also running their startups and just joined online communities to sort of have that group that to champion you, but also to learn from, because I was learning business and entrepreneurship, you know, and I just looked at other people who were a few steps ahead of me, and so that was really great.
That's a really great advice. I also do recommend going on networking events because, you know, like that's you never know, one encounter can lead you to something else, right?
Absolutely. And I'd just say as well with the Hatch Enterprise that is helping amazing startups and amazing founders, they have a bunch of networking and loads of like educational and informational sessions online. So I'd really encourage you just to go to their website and check out those.
We'll put all the links. So tell us a bit, how was kind of your first venture? What was the idea and how did you actually join as well as startups before having obviously the idea of also launching the book?
Well, so actually the book sort of came first.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So I was like sitting in my day job, really not enjoying it and just asking myself what it is I wanted to do with my life. Yep. Thank you very much, Mel. So the title's called Escape the Cubicle, Quit the Job You Hate and Create a Life You Love. And so what I found was a lot of people, in myself included, is that we normally have a job we don't like, but then we try to find another job that we can enjoy.
Exactly.
But what I found was it's not, you know, jumping from job to job that's going to give you happiness. You actually have to design your life based on the values that you value. Yeah. So you've got to ask yourself, what is important to you? What is purposeful and meaningful to you? And for me, that was basically being able to do creative ventures, working with smaller teams and, you know, having the space to kind of showcase that creativity. And I felt for myself being in business and doing things like that was great. I also learned that I love coaching, mentoring and advising. And so that's what I started to move towards. And so as I wrote this book, I started to really understand myself better. And I understood what environments and areas I was thriving in, and then how I could actually create a whole life around that. And that also meant making sure that I had time to do daily exercise, because that's really important. And just making sure you go out and have a 20-minute walk every day, because I was not doing those things and it really affected my well-being. So it's all about just creating a life that really suits you. And maybe for one person that's staying at home and taking care of your family, or maybe for someone else, doing a 9-to-5 job is exactly what they love doing. So I think it's really personal, and I think you have to really understand yourself and not compare yourself to other people. Because I know with some of my friends, for them, running their own business is like a total nightmare. They would not enjoy it at all. But other personalities and people love it like I do, and you know, so I really enjoy it.
So what was kind of the process of writing a book? Because writing a book in itself is a big challenge. Did you have any sort of like difficulties along the way publishing that book? And sort of after that book was published, the cover was made, how was it to kind of like communicate around it? Because as well, you want people to reach out and, you know, like make sure they buy the book.
Yeah, so I think any person who's written a book is going to tell you they had loads of difficulties, and most of it is procrastination. So I made loads of cups.
Black page.
Yeah. So every time I procrastinated, I was always making cups of tea. So I always knew when I'd had like 3 or 4 cups a day, I was like, I need to actually start writing.
Yeah.
So I actually just started off with the topic that was closest to my heart, which was basically, how can I create a life that I really enjoy? And that's what sort of helped me to create an outline. I wanted to write a book that could help someone who was maybe stuck in their life, or they didn't know what job they wanted to do, or even how to build their ideal sort of life. So I basically sat down and I gave myself a target of writing 1,000 words a day. And I remember during my Christmas break, I just literally got my phone and I dictated into my phone just ideas and, you know, reams of text. And then in the new year, I contacted an editor and I basically worked with her to bring all those, you know, frazzled words into a published book. And I self-published this book. So I was involved in the cover design and the inside typeset. So I always think this was really my first startup, because you have an idea and then you're creating a product and then launching it out into the market. So that was the process behind the book. I found typesetters and cover designers and graphic designers to work with. And then once this book was launched, I did marketing using social media and a blog as well. And then that basically led to loads of people inviting me, luckily, to come and speak at their offices. So I spoke at Google, I spoke at other corporate organizations, and I just basically shared my story. And then that basically led to coaching people and mentoring people and doing some life coaching. So that was sort of, I would say, like my first business of life coaching and writing and helping other people get their books and words out into the world.
And you talking about coaching, so you are as well a mentor here at Hatch.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about what is it for you kind of to be a mentor and helping those early stage entrepreneurs kind of like, you know, help them develop the business. What are kind of the areas where you help them?
Yeah, so I actually was lucky enough to be on one of the earliest programs that Hatch ran. So a couple of years, I think 1 or 2 years into starting my business, Hatch was one of the first people who was running a female-focused program for entrepreneurs. So I joined that. It was like a 3 or 4 month program, and it was just so brilliant. I got so much support from Hatch. They brought in mentors to teach us about branding and sales and marketing, and then we also benefited from our peer mentoring. So I was with a group of about 18 other incredible women, and it was just so brilliant to be able to share your stories and, you know, say, oh my God, I'm stuck on this, you know, how can I solve this? So it was a really great program that helped me to get to where I am today. And because I'm so passionate about, you know, Hatch and what they do, I came back and I
amazing.
And
you gave back to the community.
Absolutely, yeah. So I was invited back, and I now, at this point in time, I'm one of the workshop facilitators on the Launchpad program, which is one of the early stage programs for entrepreneurs who have just got an idea and just want to sort of grow it. And then I also mentor for Hatch as well. So I basically mentor across the board of different programs on the Hatch program. And I love mentoring because I think it's very much a two-way street. I'm being able to share my experience with people who are a few steps behind me on the journey. But at the same time, I'm also learning from them as well, because they're also doing incredible, amazing things. And I just feel it's really important that once you've been helped, you're able to give that back in some way. And I think it's just a lovely experience. And I love working with other entrepreneurs. It just really lights me up.
Definitely. And you can as well watch the mentoring series we did with Dirk, because he's a mentor as well, but a mentee at the same time.
Fantastic.
So we'll put that link as well. So what have you kind of, Sukhi, seen in terms of helping those entrepreneurs? What do you think are the most common challenges entrepreneurs face? Because you've been mentoring some of them. Do you think there are common kind of challenges we all kind of face? And maybe give some advice to the ones that are watching this interview.
Yeah, sure. So another great question. So I think what I've seen is there's sort of like two sort of main areas. One is sort of the practical side, which is funding. You know, there's always going to be a funding challenge. Whenever you're starting any new endeavor, you're going to usually have to put some money up front. And most of the time, especially if you're from an underrepresented background, you usually don't have access to those types of funding. So it's very much you're bootstrapping it. So what I would say is explore different ways of funding.
Yeah.
If you don't have funds to put into the business yourself, you can actually access startup loans that Virgin does.
Definitely.
So those are, I think, pretty low interest rates, so you can have a look at that. You can also do crowdfunding, which is what I did. Crowdfunding is when you basically reach out to the crowd and they're able to fund your venture if they believe in you, and they can invest from as little as £10 all the way up to, you know, 100,000. So that's, again, a really great way. And then you can also just ask your friends and family.
Exactly.
Which is also what I did.
Money.
Yeah. I asked some of my closest friends and some of my ex-colleagues, and they believed in me. They believed in my business vision, and so they backed me. Then I'd say the second sort of big problem I see is actually confidence, or a lack of confidence.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to tell you as
well. Like I've come across amazing people who say, oh, I create this organic sort of beauty product, but I don't know if I don't know what makes me stand out, because there's other bigger brands out there doing things. But what I say is there is no one out there doing it the way that you can do it. And that is what's going to make you stand out. If you're selling, say, for example, coconut oil, there's like loads of people selling coconut oil.
Definitely.
But why don't you embed your story into it? You know, maybe put your background into it, or share the reasons why you're selling coconut oil and why is it so important and special for you. So the more you can personalize it, share your story and just showcase that, and I think people will really buy into it. So just having the confidence that you do have something of value to offer and believing that you can do it. And yes, there's going to be a ton of mistakes coming up, but that is part of life.
Exactly.
You're always going to make mistakes. Just pick yourself up, dust yourself up, and just try again.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely those. I do think I agree with you. These are the two things I also see when I interview entrepreneurs as well. Like those topics keep coming with recruitment as well, because obviously that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So tell us, last question. So you tell us a bit more about your vision. What are the next projects for you coming up? Because you told us you were working for a startup as well.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit, like how is it like a day-to-day life with you?
Yeah, it's quite hectic because I
can imagine.
I did quite a lot. So I have my own startup, which I co-founded with my co-founder. So my startup is called Market Orders. It's a B2B platform for the jewelry industry.
Amazing.
So it's business to business, and we help retailers and suppliers source the best gold and diamond quality products online.
Wow.
So we're still very much a startup mode. We're still building out our technology, building out our team. But because we're still very much a small team as a startup, and as a chief operating officer, I'm pretty much running around and doing like everything from marketing to sales to lead generation to helping develop the technology and speaking to the IT team to build what we need and just setting the vision. So it's really varied. I also love writing, and I'm going to be launching a blog soon where I'm going to, it's going to be a space where I share my learnings about being a startup founder from my perspective. So that's coming up, and just looking to do more mentoring other business owners, and I'm also a business mentor for the government's Help to Grow program. So for businesses that were struggling after COVID, I also mentor them and help them get back onto their feet as well. And as a new year comes in, just looking for new opportunities to keep growing, and most importantly, creating the life that you can really enjoy, and building a business that you can be proud of.
Amazing. And having all of these, I guess, organization is a must skill for you. And we all struggle with that as entrepreneurs. Do you have any kind of your kind of tip to help us get better at organization when you have so many different projects going on?
Yes. Yeah, if you were to look at my desk right now, it's just an explosion of post-it notes and papers all over the space. But yes, you're right. I'm actually quite process orientated, coming from a project management background. So I love a to-do list. I absolutely love that. So I have multiple to-do lists based on which sort of areas of the business I'm working on. But then what I do is I will pick the 3 most important tasks that I know have to be done by that week.
Amazing.
And then I actually take those 3 tasks and I
add it into my diary and I block off that time. Because sometimes on a Monday morning, you can come in, open your email, and there's a ton of stuff that you think, oh my God, I now need to work on this. But if you open your diary and you can see between 9 and 12, you have to be working on the marketing strategy, I will just focus on that. And once it's done, I've checked it off, then I will go and check other little fires that are burning. But you do have to be quite self-disciplined. And also, Mel, you know, you have to be realistic. If you don't get much done in a day, don't kick yourself. Measure your progress in terms of like the week. So maybe you might have 2 days that you were super unproductive, or other things were happening that were out of your control, but by the end of the week you managed to catch up.
You did something at least.
Absolutely. So that's my top tip. And I love writing it down on a pen and paper. I'm not very good with these digital notebooks because I think it just gets lost in the cloud. So I think you can't go wrong with a good old-fashioned notepad and pen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sukhi, for sharing a bit of your journey, sharing your precious advices. So how do people kind of reach out to you, stay in touch with you, and want to know more about what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on all social media channels, and you can drop me a note on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. And just if you have any questions, or any sort of thoughts, drop me a message, and I'd love to hear from you guys, and especially other business owners, and just sharing your challenges, and we're all in it together. So that would be my top tip. And thank you very much, Mel, for having me. It's been great.
Thank you so much for you. And as Sukhi said, if you have any questions, we'll put all the links down in description, and as well your business questions, Sukhi can answer them if needed. So it was a pleasure to have you here on Mel's Talk, and I will see you soon on another episode.